Introducing the DRF Cash Grab app, the super easy, free-to-play sports predictor game from a name you know and trust. The Daily Racing Form. Use your sports knowledge to predict the winners, and you could score thousands of dollars in cash prizes. Pro football, college football, pro basketball, college basketball, hockey, soccer, boxing, baseball, and more. Compete against others for a spot on the monthly leaderboard. Download the DRF Cash Grab app and play today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Buer. It's a super Saturday as we creep closer to the Breeders' Cup. Our DRF Saturday race of the day for October the 8th is at Belmont at the Big A, and it's an important prep for the Breeders' Cup turf. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. $500,000 is the purse. We're going 1.5 miles, and arguably the best filly and mare turf horse in the country, the number 2 Warlike Goddess. She's going to try the boys in here for trainer Bill Mott, and Mott said, if she runs well in here, he really wants to run her against the boys in the Breeders' Cup turf. She's extremely talented. She has a kick. She needs pace.
Yeah, she does. It feels like this is a distance thing, Dan, as far as the Breeders' Cup goes, because that Philly mare turf at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, they cut that back. I think Mott realizes that Warlike Goddess is probably at her best going longer, so they'll try the boys now and see how it works out.
Warlike Goddess was wired on a slow pace last time out. Let's throw up the time form U.S. pace projector because there is a chance that the number 1 Bye Melvin stretching out in distance can get to an easy early lead and drop the anchor. Graham Motion's done a fantastic job with this gelding, Mike, and to me, he's bred enough to get this distance with the right trip.
Yeah, he is, and it feels like that right trip is probably just how this pace projector lays it out. If he can just sort of make his way to the early lead, get control, and, maybe catch a breather somewhere. Yeah, I think there's a real chance that he can stretch it out here. There are obvious questions here, Dan, as far as not only the distance goes, but also as far as class goes. But he's got a little bit of that. He's really come back from that long layoff this year in very, very good form.
He had some ability as a 3-year-old, a graded stakes winner for Motion, and then he went away for a long time. Graham is great off layoffs, and they've altered this horse's style after they gelded him and brought him back to the races. Let's watch his most recent start, his second start off a year-plus layoff at Saratoga. He caught a course with a little bit of give, and he likes that, but he was able to get to the front, and he just strides away from these horses. A 101 buyer. He seems very confident when he's on the lead, Mike.
He does. I mean, listen, he just got absolutely loose in this race. When they brought him back off of that long layoff for that first start, going the mile at Saratoga, he took a ton of pressure on the lead and actually ran really well in there to just get beat. And this race, it was totally different. He got totally loose on the lead. He had plenty left when they came to challenge him, and you saw him kick away there pretty impressively through the stretch, Dan. As you've already pointed out, he's got enough pedigree, it feels like, to get the 1.5 miles. And there was a time when he was a 3-year-old that it felt like he was going to be a graded stakes kind of horse on the turf.
Probably the most visually impressive of these horses is the number 2 Warlike Goddess. Go back in your free Formulator past performances, click on the comment line of any one of her wins, and you'll see her win very, very easily. Now, last time out in the Flower Bowl, she was the big favorite, and she just caught a pace setter that got loose on glacial fractions. Let's watch the stretch run of this race. Yes, they did go 53 and 1 to the half in here, and Virginia Joy's on the lead. Warlike Goddess is bottled up in between horses. Warlike Goddess is going to run, and she runs very well to make it close because Virginia Joy's nobody. When she gets a pace like that, she's tough.
Yeah, true enough. This is sort of silliness, though, the way that they rode Warlike Goddess here, sitting back in last and then just leaving her with way too much to do. There was just no urgency from Rosario at any point in this race, despite, he had to know that they were walking in front of him. Dan, to me, the most confounding thing about that race, too, is the first 2 times Rosario rode the Warlike Goddess. And yeah, there were times when, she looked like a 1-run closer. He didn't ride her like that in the Bewitch or the Glens Falls. Slow paces. He kept her within range, and she was dominant in victory. I don't understand the tactics last time.
It'll be interesting to see if they make a concerted effort to get closer to the pace, considering it's a relatively short field and there is one true speed. The 3 is Adamo. He is a Grade 1 stakes winner this year, although I think you and I would agree that the UN at this point in time is not really a true Grade 1. Adamo worked out a really nice in-out mid-pack trip that day and ran down the main speed to win that race. In the Sword Dancer, he just didn't fire his best shot. Maybe you can make the excuse there was some give in the ground. I still wonder how far he wants to go and how good he is.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe that Sword Dancer had more to do with distance than anything else. He was terrible in there off of a pretty good trip. Prior to that, though, he did win the UN, and he finished ahead of Gufo there. Prior to that, in the Manhattan going 10 furlongs, had a little bit of a trip in there, finished second ahead of Gufo again in that race. I think the stretch out in distance here to the 1.5 miles, it obviously works in Gufo's favor, but it's almost taken that horse down a couple of times in the past.
Distance won't be an issue for the number 4 Astronaut, who is a graded stakes winner going 11 furlongs in Southern California. That was the Del Mar handicap in the summer of 2021. The problem is, since that race, he's only run okay. And the question is, in the current form he's in, is he good enough to tackle these kind of horses? I do think he's tactical enough with an aggressive rider in Kendrick Carmouche that he can get close to the pace at a price.
Yeah, I think they'll go forward with him too. I just don't know that he's good enough to beat a field like this one. As you've already pointed out, he is a graded stakes winner on the turf, and maybe he just falls into a trip here and sort of takes the step forward that he needs to take to get a piece of this thing. I couldn't put him on top, though.
Rock Emperor, the number 5, is the kind of horse you want to take at a price, and he's going to be, and only at a price, never at a short price. And he'll be a price in this race. He's 10-1 on the morning line. He won the Joe Hirsch last year at a pretty big price against a field that I think is weaker than the one that he's going to be facing on Saturday. He won the Bowling Green 2 starts back against a field that probably wasn't very good. And last time out in the Sword Dancer, he kind of ran his Rock Emperor race. It was one-paced and even. He's the kind of horse, I think, that needs a lot of things to go his way and for the big names to take a slight step back.
I think you're 100% right about all that stuff. If you're going to bet him in a race like this, you're going to bet him at a price, and he should be a price in here. He did win this race last year off a really good trip against a weaker field. He's another horse, though, who has defeated Gufo in the past. He can get the 1.5 miles as opposed to his stablemate Adama, who still got to prove that. The problem with him, Dan, is he was another one. He was awful in the Sword Dancer last time.
Of the 2 horses in this race trained by Christophe Clement, the number 6, Soldier Rising, is going to be the better price, and he might actually have way more upside than the 7 Gufo. This is a horse that has some ability, and he's slowly rounding himself back into form. Last time out in the Sword Dancer, he fell far behind. The pace was solid. He came to the outside, and he was eating up ground. It was yet another progressive effort for this horse, and I still think he does have upside, but he's a real late runner that needs pace.
Yeah, I suppose he could take another step forward here. I do think he's come back better at 4 than he was at 3. The Sword Dancer last time, I guess you would say that's the best race he's ever run. You know, personally, when I go back and watch it, Dan, I just thought Jose Ortiz did absolutely everything right in there. He rated this horse back to last, but they just followed Gufo around the track. They took this horse clear in the stretch, and he tried to kick Gufo down, and he could not do it. But he still ran pretty well in there. To me, he's hard to take back in this kind of a race. Unless he's, some kind of big price.
His stablemate Gufo added blinkers 2 starts back for Christophe Clement, and he seems to get out of the gate a little bit sharper now with the blinkers. I thought that was the case in the Sword Dancer, and Rosario rated him back. He got a pretty good trip from mid-pack and stormed down the pace setter in the stretch. A horse, Mira Mission, who inherited the lead at the 3/16, who probably doesn't want to go that far. He came back at Kentucky Downs. I was a little surprised that Clement ran him in this race, although it is a very big purse. Let's watch the Kentucky Turf Cup, and we see Gufo. He broke well in this race. He was kind of in and among horses for the first mile. He gets to the outside, and he runs on. He drops a 3-horse photo by a nose.
He's got a real shot at this race. He did, I guess, sort of get outmoved by the winner around that final turn, but he still has, it's a very long stretch there, and he's got a real shot at this thing towards the end, and he just gets denied at the end. I guess all in all, it was a good performance. It's just one of those situations where, for someone who's been following Gufo his whole career, it just seems like kind of more of the same for this horse. He can just be so disappointing at times. And I thought he was pretty disappointing last time. The flip side of that is I really like this Sword Dancer 2 starts back, and he loves 1.5 miles.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for all the latest DRF video franchises. Topic time for the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, important prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf. I've seen several one of these races in the past. The Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, the Turf Classic back in the day, be stolen on the lead. I can see Bye Bye Melvin getting to the top.
I'm just going to hope that he does get loose here and maybe just holds his form, Dan. I think he's got enough pedigree to get this far if he can get the right kind of trip. Between the 2 favorites, I would just rather have Warlike Goddess than Gufo, although obviously they're both dangerous.
I understand what you're saying about Gufo. He can be had We've seen him be had at pretty short prices in his career. I do think he is a little bit more tactical than Warlike Goddess, and with the blinkers, he seems a little bit more interested in the early portion of this race. We'll see if Junior Alvarado, his new jockey, tries to get him a little bit closer. It's going to be a fun race from a pace standpoint with Bye Bye Melvin at a price, of course, with Warlike Goddess, the filly, taking on the boys, and we'll see if Gufo can get it done. He won the Sword Dancer 2 years in a row. Mike is going to go Bye Bye Melvin. I'm going to go with Gufo. It's a nice edition of the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Good luck.